Hi everyone, welcome back to another guided nature play teacher training video. Today I'm going to walk you through a super simple, super fun sensory scavenger hunt that we like to call Dozen Touches. I'll show you some adaptations that you can make to this activity so that it works for both older elementary students all the way down to pre-primary young learners. Then I'm going to show you some simple changes that you can make to this activity to change it from a guided nature play sensory activity to a guided nature play connections activity. So we have a lot to cover. Let's jump right in. For this activity, Dozen Touches, the only prop that you're going to need is empty egg cartons that we've actually upcycled into what we like to call touch boxes. On the inside of our touch boxes, we've thought of 12 adjectives that correspond with a texture or a touch that you might find out in nature. You're going to take your students out into a natural area that you have available to you at your school or facility, whether it's a forested area nearby or even just the edge of a football field. Challenge your students to go out into that green space and try to find the perfect match to each of the touch words that are in their corresponding spots. When they do find it, they're going to take that touch and begin to fill up their touch boxes. This activity isn't just a good opportunity to have them out of the classroom moving about freely. It's a really great opportunity to have them get low to the ground, discovering and exploring, and potentially using some of the skills that they've learned from our other guided nature play activities. Some students are going to rush through this activity, so slow them down. Encourage them to find the perfect match to each of these compartments. Have them on their tummies, have them crawling around. You can encourage them to look up at the underside of leaves or maybe under trees, or have them tucked under bushes, really thinking critically about where they can explore to find each of these textures. Things like cold, they're probably going to have to start thinking critically about where is cold in nature. Well, on the underside of rocks, on the underside of logs, where maybe the sun isn't hitting and maybe there's some decomposition happening. There are so many different words to choose from, so you can make your boxes unique to your students' age level, reading level, comprehension level, or even just have them all be a little bit different so it's a little bit more challenging when they're out in the woods. Here are some of the nature adjectives that we've chosen for our touch boxes. We have things like spongy, rough, spiky, smooth, fuzzy, hard, squishy, prickly, cold, icky, which is a really fun one for students, moist, and bumpy. If adjectives are something that you're working on with your students, either in an English class or maybe even a French class, this is a really great way to have your students practice what they're learning in the classroom and bring that out into nature. One thing that you can do is have your students work with you to create these touch boxes during class. They can either work individually, in pairs, groups, or as a whole class to come up with 12 of these adjectives and then help make their own touch boxes. Having your students be a part of the creation of their own touch boxes can really help build some anticipation and an excitement for going out into nature and actually using them. It's a good opportunity for you as a teacher in a classroom setting to set some guidelines, boundaries, and expectations of behavior before taking your students, especially if it's a larger class, out into a really exciting, sometimes a little bit distracting environment. And this isn't just a good activity when working on literacy curriculum. As a teacher with a little bit of guidance and a little bit of adaptations to something like a touch box, you can have your students thinking critically and creatively about concepts during a science class. Let's say you're working with your science class on something like the soil cycle. Something as simple as gathering them around, getting them low to the ground, and flipping over a decomposing log can be an incredible hands-on learning experience. Ask them your questions. What textures do you think that we're going to find under this decomposing log? And why are those textures different than what's in the surrounding area, maybe above ground? How are these textures going to be changing over time? Why are they wet or cold when other places aren't, or fuzzy when other places aren't? What's happening? Get them really thinking critically while they're engaged in a hands-on way in nature. Now, this might be great if you have 6 egg carton instead of the 12 egg carton, but another thing that you can do with that is have them actually recreate their own soil cycle in these little compartments through touch. Have them start with a fresh green leaf and work their way down through the soil cycle all the way to that dark, rich nutrient soil. Ask them the questions that have them thinking critically about what they're actually creating in the moment. Talk to them about why is this happening and why are there different stages to this? Why is it so important for our environment? Guided nature play activities like this are an awesome way to get students excited about what they're learning in class. It's not just because it's out in a beautiful space, and it's not just because it's hands-on learning, but the activity is the lesson, and the lesson doesn't happen without their individual participation. They're taking ownership over their learning. Let's move on to talking about some adaptations that you can make for younger students, whether it's primary, pre-primary, or even younger. For young learners, the 12 compartments might be a little bit overwhelming at first, so a great option is the 6 egg cartons instead of the 12. And it might be useful for you to actually leave the lid on, just so that things don't fall out as they're moving from one place to the other. This is also a really great craft for young learners, where they can decorate their very own touch boxes with things like paints, crayons, stickers, little bits and bobs from nature, whatever is unique to them. Of course, the biggest adaptation is going to be what's on the inside of your touch boxes. Young learners, of course, aren't at the stage where they're ready to read out their own touch boxes. So here are some adaptations that you can make that have this activity still remain a really great learning and sharing opportunity. So you can simply adapt this activity into a really fun game by calling out the words and having them go and collect whatever you called out into their touch box. And be creative. You can yell out different types of things for your young learners to go and collect. You can yell out a texture and then a color and then maybe a tiny object that they can go and scavenge in nature, like an acorn or a little pebble or a tiny seed. One thing that you can also do along those same lines of colors is just paint the inside of your touch box with a different color. You can have a red one, a green one, yellow one, blue one, purple one, whatever, and then have your young learners go out and still have a scavenger hunt, but with the colors instead of the adjectives. And finally, let's talk about how we can turn this guided nature play sensory activity into a guided nature play connections activity. Now, we've talked a little bit about connection activities before in our artist video, which is a fun little video on our playlist. You should go check it out if you haven't already. Instead of a game style activity that has children curious about their environment and exploring it using their senses, these connection activities have them shifting their focus into seeing nature as a place of open-ended creativity and play. The way to bring that for young learners into this particular activity, or at least with this prop, is to turn this from a dozen touches scavenger hunt box into their very own nature collection box that's totally unique and special to them. Allow your young learners to open-endedly explore the space and fill their boxes with their own nature collections. A nature collection can look totally different. It's all about allowing the child autonomy to fill up their box however they see fit. This is just about appreciating nature. There really aren't any rules. One thing that you can do as their ECE is to help the children with a little bit of guidance. You can ask them some questions that can help get them started. You can ask them, what types of things do you want to put in your box? What's special in nature to you? And they can fill their box with tiny little pebbles that they find around your area, or maybe they really like acorns or pine cones or little flowers or maybe beautiful colors of fallen leaves. You're encouraging them to freely interact and appreciate nature. It allows them that self-autonomy, it allows them that space for creativity and self-expression while still maintaining a little bit of guidance and structure from you, their leader. Have your young learners come back together and share their absolute favorite favorite part of their collection. This doesn't have to be long. It can just be a simple show and tell of their favorite piece of their collection. This gives every single child the opportunity to have what's special to them be valued and appreciated by their peers, as well as allowing each child to value and appreciate what's special to the peers around them. We like using egg cartons for this activity, and we do it for a couple of reasons. One of the main reasons is that they stack really, really nicely, and that will be great when you're not using these and you can keep them nice and neat in your classroom. Another reason that we like to use these egg cartons is it demonstrates to children that you can upcycle anything into a really fun, useful nature tool. That being said, egg cartons aren't the only option. If you're struggling to find enough egg cartons for your class for either every student to have their own, or even if they're working in pairs, another great option is to use plastic ice cube trays. You can get these for really cheap at the dollar store, and they have the divots just like our egg cartons do. They work just the same. But one thing that's really nice about using the ice cube trays is that the ice cube trays are a lot sturdier. They're obviously not as flimsy as our cardboard here, so they're going to last a lot longer. They also can be rinsed out. If students are putting in things like soil and mud, anything squishy or moist, those are words that we have in our box, of course the boxes are going to take a little bit of a beating over time. The ice cube trays are going to be durable, they're going to be rinsable, they're still going to be stackable, and they last a very long time. Forever. Because they're ice cube trays. And that's going to do it for our guided nature play activity called Dozen Touches / Collections. We hope that you've had a lot of fun and you found some inspiration about how you can make this work for either your older classes all the way down to your young learners. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Happy discovering! Bye!